Hello, JP. Welcome to my podcast, the first one ever. So you've done this a lot.
Bro, I'm so excited.
So you're going to have to make me look pretty good, hopefully. That was
not difficult for me.
That was the plan, to get you in here.
Yeah, I can see
is
that.
this correct? Fantastic. Yeah, so thanks for coming. How's it been in Dubai? You've been here for like a week,
man.
loving it?
Well, first of all, I always stay in hotels. So because you got your new place, which is like beyond amazing, and you invited me to stay there, it's just been so good to be around you, Kimmy, the boys, just the energy of the apartment and the view of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, the fountains, the opera house. Like every day I'm just like overflowing with gratitude. But also being in Thailand for the last 2 years, it's really made me think, you know, from a business perspective, like Dubai is the best place in the world to be.
Yeah?
It just is, 100%.
Yeah. Because you don't really have that big personal development. You have people doing personal development in Thailand, but there's not any big...
There might be
most people you meet
business,
like there for fitness or spiritual journeys, but they're not going there to meet someone like you.
Their life might be business, or their life might be personal development in it, but people are there for holiday.
Yeah.
They just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's why you see all these memes online about people going to Thailand and never coming back and doing this, you know, spreading the money with their hands. But, you know, I love it there. And obviously you've been there and come to visit me and done ceremonies there. But it's just a different energy, man. It's a different energy.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you just switched on to opportunity, possibility, connections. And you heard me say this before, like the number one thing that I've never seen anywhere in the world is after you meet someone 5 minutes in, you can see their brain ticking and thinking, how can I help this guy or this woman?
Yeah, I came for a weekend, met up with one of your friends. In fact, I went to the Capital Club, met Dave, who runs the whole thing, the most connected man in Dubai. And you tell him like two seconds is what I do. So we walk around the club and he's like, you got to speak to him. Hey John, come here, have a meeting with him. And within an hour I had like 3 or 4 meetings. So it is,
That's crazy.
It's more that I've lived in Germany for 10 years and I didn't get one meeting like that. So
yeah, well, I've lived in Thailand for 2 years. I've had more activity in the last 5 days than I've probably had in the last year of living there. And including doing this podcast, and I'm looking forward to it. You're a member of Capital Club now, right?
You got me in there.
Just
yeah,
for
it's
any
really
listeners,
good. Met some great people, different walks of life. Yeah, definitely recommend going there when you move here. Good for business, good for... I've met more friends there than business.
Really?
Contact. Yeah.
I should definitely... I want to go back there with you.
Paddle, squash, it's been good. And you also rode your first scooter yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Like, don't people get confused with like a scooter?
Yeah.
Like, what do you call it? Push scooter?
I don't know. Moped?
But it wasn't actually the first time I've ever done it. I've done it a little bit in LA when I went there on holiday, but this is the first time you're doing it in Dubai. And 2.5 years ago, I was going to move to Dubai. I have a passion for Dubai. I love it so much. To be on a scooter with the evening lights and this color of the sky and to be with friends, it was too much, man.
Gorgeous.
It was just
I
like...
don't take a taxi anywhere. Well, unless you go to the Palm.
Yeah, unless you're going far enough that you need a taxi.
Anywhere within like a few kilometers, it's a lot.
And we went along the river. I mean, we must have been going for like an hour.
Yeah.
It was just really amazing.
Until I fell off the scooter. My girlfriend.
Oh my gosh.
Loved that.
I don't know what you were doing. I saw you go down the pavement trying to come up, and I can see the curb, and it was like the front wheel went over, and I was waiting for the back wheel to hit, and it was like slow motion. I knew what was going to happen.
She was really happy with it. JP, you're from Cape Town originally, a rough area of Cape Town. South Africa. Accents still there a little bit, a tiny bit. And yeah, you grew up there. Wasn't the easiest childhood. You got tall pretty quickly, a bit skinny, should we say?
Pale, skinny, tall, and curly hair.
Curly hair was
literally. I had all the bad
Ginger
things.
would be the only additional thing to top it off. So it wasn't an easy time. You were bullied at school. Unfortunately, lost your dad at a really young age, and you had some good experiences, but it wasn't so easy. Could you take us back to? So that was you. You went from there to being a personal trainer, famous DJ, fitness model.
Not famous, but a full-time DJ.
You got paid.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you've gone through personal development. You've lived in the UK, clients all over the world. Work with CEOs, Olympic athletes. You've helped a lot of people in relationships, actually. That's maybe your
Without trying to.
Your underrated thing is actually connecting people better together. I've got lots of examples of friends that you've
Or
coached.
making them realize the relationship they're in is something they
And
need
it's
to
a lot
get
about
out of.
communication, which again transcends into all areas. From there, you've done personal development, you've done Tony Robbins coaching, you moved to Thailand, you nearly got killed in a hit and run. Lots of stuff.
Became a monk.
You became a monk, you did a silent retreat, which I'm surprised. That's pretty hard for you, for no talking for 5 days.
That's why I had to do it.
Yeah.
It was a challenge.
Exactly. But that was you, so can you run us through, I met a lot of people from Cape Town. A lot of people actually there's a big South African community in Dubai.
100%, because it's easy to get a visa here.
Yeah.
Dubai is just ahead of so many countries in many ways. One is they make it really easy for people to come here.
Yeah.
Like if you're willing to get a job and you're willing to work, it's just a process. But a lot of countries refuse South Africans because of apartheid still. It's just so stupid. So South Africans can't actually go a lot of places. I only went to the UK when I was 20 for one reason.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't go to another country.
Really?
Like, why would I live by the beach like a surfer growing up with the most energetic, amazing, happy people to go live in the rain and the snow? But it's the only way I could get out of South Africa. Anyway, so there's a lot of people here in Dubai.
There's a lot of people here. But yeah, everyone says it's a beautiful place. Most people that visit there, they want to go back and at least spend a lot of time there or live there. I've got a friend who's living in Germany. He wants to live in South Africa in the summers, which I understand. But what was it like growing up there as a kid, actually being there? And what was your childhood like? And how did that shape? We'll go into more of that, but how did that shape? You can give us some examples of how your childhood shaped who you are today, particularly on your personal development journey.
Well, I'll start with sharing who my father was. So my father, I thought for many years, was fucked up. But I was to learn later, through personal development, no one is born a bad person. Hurt people. And my father did a lot of hurt to people, and he did a lot of hurt to himself. He was a gambler, sex addict, womanizer, abuser, drug addict, not drug addict, party boy, drug abuser, maybe. Just unfaithful. All the things you could think that makes a man not a real man. My dad was those things. But I learned in later life that my father was a genius, and people in his life considered him a genius, and he couldn't handle his own intelligence. And this is something that I can relate to in my business, because a lot of my clients over the years are successful, but they're miserable because they don't know what to do when they're at the top.
Yeah.
So my father went from the top to the top to the top, kept changing industries, never finding happiness and fulfillment, not being able to control his mind. He didn't know anything about personal development. He didn't know about mindset, habits, environment, energy optimization, vibration, frequency, law of attraction, boundaries, none of that. He was just doing his best. And everyone in the world, from an athlete to an abuser to a criminal, everyone in the world is doing their best. And my father was doing his best, but unfortunately his best wasn't that good. So that's a bit about who my father was. Now, to add to that, the greatest wound, we are all living according to our wounds, right? If you have no wounds, you're whole and you become limitless. You think abundantly, you think like God, you have no limitations. But my father's greatest wound was that his own mother, real mother, left him in an orphanage when he was 4 or 5 years old. That's one of the greatest wounds you can have as a human being. It's abandonment. And my father felt not enough from that age. And as a kid and as a father now, I'm very aware, for kids as a father, I'm very aware that you create your rules for life between like 4 and 7. Some people say 5 and 10, but when you're very young, you're creating your rules for life. So my father, his rule for life became, I'm not enough. So imagine this, you got hyper intelligence and you don't believe you're enough. Yeah. That's just a recipe for disaster.
Definitely.
So anyway, my father, from not feeling good enough, did all these bad things. It spread into all the areas of his life, including my mother, us as kids, and ultimately after trying 7 times, because he just couldn't deal with life, on the 8th time he was successful in killing himself. So that was a lot of my childhood, dealing with that. As a kid, I would go visit my father and someone would be with my mother And I'd be like, why is there people accompanying us to go visit my dad? And then I'd be like, why is Dad in a hotel with security guards? Later I realized he was in a mental hospital.
Oh, right.
And why has my father got bandages all over his neck? And he's telling me, oh, I was at a party and I fell out the window. And I'm like, it's a bit of a weird cut for falling out a window.
How old were you at this stage?
I can't remember. My time was
Well, you were
so
like below
warped
15,
for me.
right?
Oh yeah. My
Yeah,
father took his life when I was 13.
When you were 13.
So I think
so
this
you're like,
particular time, I think I was 10 or 11.
Yeah. So you can't compute it. You don't know what's happening. You got
I thought he was in some kind of hotel, but he was like resting, and people were looking after him because he had fallen at a party, but he had slashes all around his throat. So this is like normal for me. I'm like, oh, okay, we're just visiting Dad, but he just tried to kill himself.
Yeah.
And that was one of the times. So, and not having my father there, he cheated on my mother with her best friend. He didn't support my mother consistently after the divorce. Obviously, my mom was destroyed. So there was a lot of uncertainty and a lack of safety and a lack of trust. And these are three things that every child needs: certainty, safety, and trust. And I didn't have that. So I became a shy, scared, timid little boy, and I became the easiest target for bullies.
Yeah.
Like you said, I was tall, skinny, pale. The only thing missing, I had curly hair. The only thing missing was I wasn't ginger. That just would have been.
You got to look at the positives in every situation.
So of course I'm joking, but so I became an easy target for bullies. So life for me growing up was suffering. Now it wasn't the worst life in the world. I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. I saw a lot of poverty. I saw a lot of homelessness. I saw a lot of suffering. But when you've moved around 8 times, you've gone to 8 different schools, you've got in and out of boarding schools, you've seen your mother come boyfriend after boyfriend, and she just wants to be rescued, and you can see abuse, and I'm staring down the stairs as a 9-year-old, and I'm looking around the corner and I can see my mom being abused by her boyfriend or fighting, and it's just a lot for a kid, you know. And not having money, and me starting to work at 10 years old, 11 years old. I had my second job, 12 years old. I was pushing trolleys outside supermarkets. From 13 to 18, I worked in a fruit and vegetable market while all my friends went on holidays. I never had that experience.
Yeah.
Maybe once a year we went to a camping place with my parents. But I never did what other kids did. Yeah. If I wasn't in school, I was working to support myself. And a lot of the time, because my mother was doing her best, and my parents were doing their best spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, with the energy they had left off the jobs that they didn't really like ever. Sometimes I had to just do shit for myself, you know, take myself to the cinema, take myself to the shop, walk 5K, 6K, 7K. But once again, my mother's the greatest woman in the world. She's the first person that ever taught me resilience.
Right.
But she wasn't a perfect mother. She's perfect in my eyes as a human being, but she wasn't a perfect mother. So I had lack of support, lack of safety, lack of certainty, lack of consistency in people showing up for me. But one thing I found that gave me all of that was sport.
Yeah.
And you obviously have a connection with sport as well.
Same for me.
I started with judo. What's weird now, you know, I'm a martial artist today.
Yeah.
I only made this connection a few months ago. My first ever sport was martial arts, judo. But I couldn't afford, after I did the trial classes, I couldn't afford the equipment with the gi, like the uniform. So I couldn't continue. So I went next door, they did karate. I was like, oh, I'll do a few karate lessons. They gave me 3 for free as a trial or a week or something. Did that, then couldn't afford the gi, so I couldn't continue. So here I'm falling in love with martial arts, and the one thing that makes me feel amazing for the first time, and I can't even do it. And then I found rugby.
Oh, okay.
And rugby changed.
I bet you were fast.
Rugby, huh?
I bet you were quite fast.
Yeah, right wing, baby.
Yeah.
I was tall and fast.
Yeah.
And rugby changed my life because I just became strong. I became confident.
The camaraderie. It's like a little family.
I didn't really have that because I was picked on a lot in school.
Yeah.
I wasn't a cool guy and good looking like you've been your whole freaking entire life. But on the field and when I was training, I mean, I was in the C team, B team, C team. I was never in the A team.
Right.
But I just stuck to myself all the time. You know, I wasn't that confident, but I had zero confidence before that. And even when I had the rugby jersey that was falling apart, even when I had the terribly knitted rugby socks They were always falling down. I just never had new kit like other kids. I never had that once in school. But I didn't care when I was on the field. I just didn't care. I didn't care what was going on in life. I didn't care what was like now, business. When I'm in fitness, I don't care about anything other than how I am in that moment. And how I was feeling in those moments of sport and fitness was just elevated. So I used it as a crutch in the beginning, and then I just fell in love with sport. Then when I was 12, I started playing rugby at like 8 maybe. By the age of 12, 13, I started developing extraordinary pains in my knees. Like to a point I couldn't even, to go from a standstill to a run after the ball, 3 steps in, it would be like knives going into my knees. And I went to a doctor. My mom took me to a doctor, and the doctor said, your son is growing too fast. His bones can't keep up, and he's got a knee disease called Osgood-Schlatter's disease. Your son cannot play impact sport. Oh. And that like broke me as a 12-year-old kid. I was
one escape.
I was like, this is my one escape.
And it's gone.
And now I'm being told again, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And this has been like the story of my life, having resilience to push through adversity.
Yeah.
That's what my latest book is about. It's just push through adversity. So I was like, don't tell me what I can't do. What can I do? He was like, oh, you can do something like cycling. So that's the only reason I started cycling. And I've been cycling all of my life. I've been a semi-professional cyclist. I've done South African championships, school championships. But I started because it was the only thing that I could do. And that's in my book, Spiritual Fitness.
Yeah.
Focus on what is in your control, not out of your control.
Yeah.
That's been a tool that I've relied on my whole life. So I got into cycling at 13. By 18, I left school. I was semi-pro, which just means I had all of the things that sponsored cyclists have. I just didn't have a salary. So I had to work during the day. Yeah. I worked for our team manager / sponsor, and I had a contract where if I worked half day in the office, if I cycled every day for at least 3 hours, I could only work a half day in the office and still get paid full salary, because obviously he wanted us to be training as much as possible. Yeah. So I did that for quite a while, and then I think maybe cycling 17, 18, 19, semi-pro. By the age of 19, because I'd relied on sport my whole life, I didn't enjoy the benefits of being a teenager. Let's just call it that.
Okay.
So when I was 19, my cousin Mark said, bro, all you do is ride your bike. Now I'm out of school, so I'm not bullied anymore. It's a fresh start. Press the reset button on your life. I've got some confidence from cycling, etc. I've got a job.
And you're strong.
Yeah.
You're training then.
Yeah.
So
I was racing every weekend.
Yeah.
So I told my team manager, this weekend I'm not racing. I'm going to go visit my cousin. So I packed a backpack from my house, which is by my team manager, cycled 50 kilometers to my cousin's house, 30 something miles. And he took me to a nightclub, my first ever nightclub. First ever 19.
Oh
first ever time around girls, hot girls.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting all of his friends. And they don't know my backstory. They're not in school.
Yeah.
So they just embraced
they see you
me.
For who you
They're just like, hey, Mark's cousin. You must be cool. That next 2 days changed my life again. Because I went to a club called Adrenaline. You can only imagine with a name like that. Where
was it? This was in
Cape Town.
In Cape Town. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to a club called Adrenaline. I'm taking ecstasy. I'm seeing a DJ for the first time. I'm talking to girls. Girls want to hang out with me. The next morning they had like 3-4 hours sleep. They're barbecuing by the pool. They're drinking beers, listening to music. I'm like, I've never experienced this. I was like, this is living. I went back on Monday and I quit cycling. It's like, well, I have to find another passion now.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I had outside of sport in that moment was the feeling that I had listening to a DJ. So I was like, I'll become a DJ. And then kind of the rest is history, really. From my time in South Africa to moving to London. I started DJing. I was terrible, and then even less terrible, and then I was less terrible, and then less terrible, and then less terrible, until eventually I was okay.
Yeah.
And then moved to London. I was willing to do whatever it took. I still didn't have enough money to get there. My mom took out a loan just to get the visa and to pay the scammers that said they got me a good job, to get me there. And actually, they just sent me directions to a chicken factory where I was 21 years old. And I went to Ipswich in the UK. And I sat in a hostel with what I can only describe as drug addicts, trying to sell me cartons of cigarettes. And the next morning I picked up by a truck at a bus stop, and got driven to a chicken factory, and I sat on a conveyor belt for 12 hours just packing dead chickens.
Worst job ever?
100% worst job ever. And I remember the only thing was, maybe it's like created in my mind, but it was white factory, blue things, blue netting, and I could just see this little door, and outside the door had a patch of grass, and people would clock out, put their stuff down and go smoke. Come back, hand sanitizer, put their stuff on, go back in. And I've always been very introspective and very reflective and wise, let's just call it that. And from a young age, I've always observed everything. I would observe, why do bullies bully that guy? Like, how can I influence the situation? And so I'm 21 years old, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, this is their life. On the conveyor belt, to taking off,
some people have probably been there,
to taking off your roll, to suck on nicotine and then do it again. I was like, how can this be life? So I just decided to, this contract that I had to stay there for like 1 week, and they gave me accommodation, and then you get your paycheck, your accommodation and food will come out of the paycheck. After 2 days, I snuck out. I've never left my country, never been on a plane, never been to anywhere else other than South Africa. I snuck out in the middle of the night, and I found an ad for a dog and cat food factory in Norwich, which was like, I don't know, I can't remember, 10 hours, 13-hour bus ride. I took a night bus to Norwich, worked in a cat and dog food factory, and now my goal was get to London, and just kept that in my mind, and just sat in this dog and cat food factory. And after 3 days, I got there on a Friday. On the Monday, a Sunday night, a guy came back from London. I was living in this shared house in a council estate. And this guy came back, was like, hey man, nice to meet you. I'm like, oh, I've just moved into the house. I've been working the last couple of days. And he goes, oh, I've just come from London. I'm like, that's my dream. I want to get to London. I can't tell you the journey I've been on to get here. And I'll never forget. He gives me £20. And he goes, go to London.
And this was in, what, 2000, early 2000s?
2003, I think.
20 years ago.
And he gives me £20. And he goes, the train's like £11. You can get a hostel for like £7. And got a train, got a hostel, and I got one bread roll with a bag of McCoy's crisps. And I had like £1 left, and I put into 20p's. I found a TNT magazine, which lies outside tube or metro stations in the UK, and just called every place that was like a hotel job, because they give you food and accommodation. On my second 20p, I got a job in the Ship Hotel, and that's when I started working in bars. And 3 years later, I went from bartender to DJing Tuesday nights, to DJing Wednesday nights, to myself Thursdays, and then finally eventually having residencies in London, UK, and then finally the peak of my DJ career was, and the bottom pit of that chapter of my life was DJing in Riga, in the country Latvia, and I DJed to the biggest club there, and I just got to a point where I thought I had achieved everything that I wanted, but it was based on one thing, everything that I was missing as a child. I didn't have. There was lots of not having. So I thought success is having. So at this club, Nautilus, 2,500 people, I had attention. I had girls. I had guys. I had drinks. I had drugs. I had sex. I had everything. And the next morning, I felt more miserable than I'd ever felt in my life. And I was 23, and I remembered sitting in that hotel room not being able to sleep when I was 13 years old, exactly 10 years before my father took his life. And I knew I'm heading in the same direction. Success without fulfillment.
Same repeat.
And I was like, right, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop chasing success. I'm going to chase fulfillment and find out why we do what we do and how we can thrive in life. And I went back and became my first client as a coach. And I've been coaching 20 years.
Wow.
What a story.
That's quite a journey. So you went from living the dream in Cape Town, DJing, girls, drink.
Oh no, I only started DJing in the UK.
Okay. Yeah. So I was thinking the contrast
I was
from
partying
into Chicken Factory.
Yeah. I was living party life on the beach, girls.
Yeah,
it was
great.
It?
One of my mates worked in a chicken factory, and he hated it because he wanted to free the chickens, but they're all in cages. So
luckily for me, they were dead.
Oh, okay.
That just would have been.
These ones were live.
Oh my
So
God.
at the end of the like 3 weeks, his plan was to free all the chickens. So he worked. They said it was horrendous.
He told me this.
So he basically last day. He's like trying, he had this image of him like opening the cage and just flying out. But obviously, there's chickens in the cage. They've never used their muscles.
They don't know how to run. Yeah.
So he pulled them out, and all the chickens just like dropped on the floor, just like this. And he's like, okay, I've got to leave.
That just shows you animal cruelty.
Yeah, exactly. So that's quite a journey. So, yeah, you're talking about your dad. Have you got any good memories? I think everyone's got like...
So many.
Yes, some good, yeah. What's like so was he good crack?
He was very wounded,
yeah,
but he was a beautiful man. And actually, for someone that caused so much harm to so many people, his funeral or his cremation and like, I don't know what you call it, ceremony?
Yeah.
I don't know. Death ceremony? I don't know. Yeah, there wasn't a grave or anything like that, but celebration of his life. There were so many people, they couldn't even get people in the church. And it was like a really beautiful place in Cape Town, in an area called Claremont, I think. And just he was very, very loved by a lot of people.
He must have been great company. Very charismatic, charming.
Super charming. Yeah. He was loved by so many people. And even though he did so many bad things to my mother, and I won't say them out of respect for my mother, because I don't think it's necessary. He just did bad things.
Yeah.
But also everyone knew how he treated my mother and how he treated himself and just how he was. But people would always talk about him after his death. They would always say, your father was a great man.
Yeah.
And he sang, he's so talented, man. He was a drummer, played the saxophone, sang in the Cape Town choir, was the youngest ever harbour master, person in charge of a harbour in my country, became a skipper on a luxury yacht, became a captain of one of the biggest cargo ships, one of the biggest, and I think well-known cargo ships in South Africa. He was just successful at everything that he did. And I remember one of my best memories, sorry mom, was when my father was skipper of this luxury yacht called the Nautilus. And basically the owner...
Did you have a club called the Nautilus as well?
Oh yeah, weirdly, that's the club that I DJed in Riga. But I've only made that connection right now. Okay. Thank you for that. But this boat was called the Nautilus. And in Cape Town, there's a place called the Waterfront, which is the #1 tourist attraction, where it's like yachts and boats and restaurants, and it's very, very beautiful. And right in the center of the waterfront, you can only have like beautiful boats. And this luxury yacht was parked right in the center. So on weekends, when we'd go visit my father was a proper playboy. You know, we're super young. I'm maybe 10, 11, 12. My Andre, my younger brother's like, 9 or 10. And we're just on the yacht. And I mean, it's crazy yacht, like 6 bedrooms, bronze railings on like a jet ski on the back, carpets everywhere, living room. And we're just like, oh, this is our dad's yacht, because my father was the skipper, which means he's in charge of the whole boat. He's in charge of wherever it goes, in charge of all the staff, but the owner was never there. It was a bank at the time, actually, I believe. So it was like it was my father's boat. So here we and everyone's just all day taking photos of the yacht, and my father would be like, obviously to hot girls, he'd be like, come on board. They would be partying, and he was he was a wild child, man. He was a wild child. And then he would take the boat out sometimes. The #1 beach, for anyone that goes to Cape Town, they know the #1 beach is Clifton Fourth Beach. And he would take the boat out of the waterfront around Table Mountain, and he would go to Clifton Fourth Beach, and he would just park it near enough, and you would just see all these girls just swim out, and they'd come swim out, party on the yacht, and then go back to the beach, and then you would take the yacht back.
Sounds like it was good crack.
Oh, bro, he was super fun, and we did a lot of fun stuff together. And he was crazy, he liked like bungee jumping. He was nuts. Yeah. But something I also enjoyed doing with him was like singing.
You love singing.
And I've just made that connection once again right now.
Yeah.
My father was always
Did he
singing.
have because you've got like a rock ballad voice.
Oh, I can't.
Like raspy.
No, I can't remember.
But when you're good, but the control. But you can't remember.
You don't have to put that on the podcast. You should just say I'm good.
But your dad, you can't remember, but he was a good singer.
I can't remember his singing voice, but... Yeah, and he would go through stages of trying to find, after he tried to take his life, he would try and find purpose again. So he'd go through like the Jesus phase, and then he would sing like gospel songs, and that I remember that. I'll never forget. There was one song, it went something like, Jesus is the way. It was, I can't remember, but I remember that like for years I could sing every single word of that song, because I learned it sitting with my father in the car, listening to this tape. And Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't work for him. But
Yeah.
and then he joined the choir. He played saxophone. I've always wanted to learn saxophone to connect to my
It's hard.
father, but it's very, very
It's very
difficult.
difficult.
And my father was
I had like
killer.
10 lessons and no.
Really?
Yeah, when I was younger,
Oh wow.
and no
No,
consistency.
my father was gangster
Yeah.
playing.
Okay, and the so it's an interesting story as well. And but it sounds like your dad was so talented, good looking, living the dream, but because he was abandoned when he was a kid, he always had that
Unresolved trauma.
unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
I've actually got a friend who's quite similar. Good looking, super talented, like musically writes amazing music. It's like off the chain. Super smart. Like a natural IQ, I guess like 140. But his mum didn't really like him, so she kind of abandoned him. So I'm just thinking, is there a way for, because probably a lot of people who've had abandonment as a kid and they never think they're good enough, or they never, that they never quite, if they succeed, there's always that gap.
Yeah.
Is there anything, reassurance or any tips or anything where you can say, don't worry, I know you've had this abandonment, but it's not you. You are good enough. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well,
I've never really seen anyone get over it when they get abandoned. It's always lurking in the background somewhere.
I mean,
Unless they've had coaching or like psychology or therapists. But even then, it's kind of like they seem to not get over. What would you do if
it is the deepest, darkest wound, not feeling enough. I mean, there is no greater limiter on your life of not feeling worthy.
Yeah.
And yes, you can do therapy, you can do coaching. Obviously, very few coaches could take you to that place, but there are coaches that can take you to that place. I've taken people to that place many times. If I'm not able to do it, I have people like my coach that you met recently, Michelle Zelli. She's the queen of this.
Okay.
She knows how to deal with deep wounds and deep trauma. And actually, I started working with Michelle when I was in my 20s to work on my own trauma, to work on my relationship with my father, to work on my relationship with my mother. And it's possible to do through guidance and support. But it's important to remember two things. In the most simplest form of expressing this, I'll just keep it super short, and then people can just take that away and think about it. And it's, no one is born broken. No one human being is born broken. So having that awareness, you've got to understand that your brokenness, your trauma, your hurt came to you at some point after you were born. It was not part of your identity, but we make it our identity. That's where suffering occurs. In Buddhism, it's said that your thoughts don't create your suffering. Attachment to your thoughts create the suffering. Observing your thoughts doesn't create suffering. Judging your observations creates suffering. When people can learn to, through meditation, mindfulness, coaching, support, etc., understand that you are not your thoughts, you can now start to observe it and process it for what it is, which is a perspective and a perception of your life based on something that's happened in your life. And then the short version, so that short sentence is, no one is born broken. The second thing to share is, once you understand this, you've got to understand that, okay, if I got hurt, traumatized by something that happened in my life, the only way to heal the wound is to go to the wound. In my life, in my career, what people do is they continuously put band-aids on the wound. But when the band-aid gets old, you need another band-aid. So if it's sex, you need more sex. If it's drugs, you need more drugs. If it's success, you need more success. If it's promotion, you need another promotion. If it's attention, you need more attention. And it never ever stops. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You just need more until eventually you just can't get more. And then you feel even more empty. Because before you didn't have what you thought would make you happy, and now you have it and you're still not happy. So how you heal that is go to the wound. And that's why I've invested 20 years of my life to deeply understand human beings and human behavior, from NLP to psychology to living in silence to Buddhism to even ordaining as a Buddhist monk. No, I didn't have a midlife crisis. No, I wasn't running away from the world. My life was great. but I needed to understand even deeper. And now, after doing 200 hours of ayahuasca plant medicine, after sitting for 100 hours with psilocybin, I'm now facilitating medicine ceremonies and sacred ritual ceremonies for people to go to the wound. And what does that mean, to go to the wound? It means get out of your thinking brain and get into your being. Get into your heart, get into your superconscious, your unconscious, your subconscious, what is below the surface. If we use the Titanic example, what the Titanic saw and what it made its decisions on is what was above the surface, which is our conscious thinking. But what was the truth of what was going on was what was under the surface. That is the best way to describe conscious and unconscious, or conscious and subconscious. If the Titanic had the technology and had the awareness that they needed to go beneath the surface, they would have saved themselves.
Yeah.
Same goes for life. If you have the technology, the tools, the strategies, the coaching, the awareness, and, because this is why most people don't go there, the courage.
Yeah.
If you have the courage to face yourself, you can set yourself free from crashing. You set yourself free from death. Maybe that's not physical death, but it's spiritual death. If you can't heal your wounds, your spirit dies over time, because all your spirit wants to do in your life is continue to grow and evolve and become. That's the job of the spirit. Keep becoming. Keep finding out who you are and giving that to the world. Find out who you are, give that to the world. But if you're not living your truth, how can you know where to go if you don't know where you're from? And you're not willing to look at where you're from? And it is, I call it in my work that I do, it's warrior work. It's warrior work. But it's important to know that every human being has access to their full potential. And it's not something achieved on the outside. Everyone is born perfect, whole, healed, loved, loving. Every person. But life messes us up.
Because they couldn't live without it. I think Tony Robbins said something where they did like some case study of children that were cuddled but not fed. I mean, years ago, cuddled but not fed, and kids that were fed but not cuddled and loved. And I think the kids died or something like that. So the point being that everyone, if they're here today, they've been loved at some point. And some people think they've never been loved. The fact that you're here, you are.
And also, if what is, depending on whether you're religious or not, I'm sure everyone agrees that the greatest power in the world is love. In religion, that's called God, or a different expression of God. So if love/God is everywhere, no one says God is in the table but not in the plant. God is in you but not in me. God is in the glass or the sugar-free Red Bull but not in the bottle. God is everywhere. That means love is everywhere. That means only by your existence you have to know what love is, because you are love. How can you not be love? Because you are the universe, you are nature, you are energy. Energy is everything, everything is energy.
Everything's connected.
Everything is connected. So it's deeper than that. That you know, that, oh, you've had love. No, you are love. It's the hero's journey. At some point, you can hopefully come back home after your separation from love and the challenges and adventures that you go on in your life, to come back home. That is our job. But to come home for the very first time, to realize who we are, to come home whole. And that's the goal. But in finishing up on this, imagine this is halfway of this bottle is who you are. We are all the same. Everyone is the same, right? The same amount of liquid. Let's call it, this is 500 mils, so 250 mils. Everyone is 250 mils. But then what happens is your parents get divorced and they pour, imagine that this in this tin is like a black oil or a brown oil, a dark oil, and they pour a little bit on top of you. Now what you see when you look down on your life is you see the oil. But there's still 250 mils under the oil. You're still there. That part of your wholeness, that part of who you really are, doesn't disappear. It's just covered up with shit. And then you have bullying in school, a little bit more oil. Then someone says something to you, and we all, I'm sure, have this, that they say one thing to you in a certain way, and still to this day, you remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
But that happens 10 times in your life. And then your parents tell you you're not good enough. Or your mom says you're stupid. Or your father says you'll amount to nothing because they're angry and just in the moment. Or drunk. It's not even if they mean it. That stays with you.
Yeah.
And then you fail in an exam, or you get left behind in 1 year in school, or you think you're going to do well in sports and you don't.
Yeah.
All of these experiences keep pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring until eventually we believe we are the oil. But we're not. And the only way to go back to know who you truly are, love, wholeness, being healed, being one, being enough, being the same as everyone else in the world, no one is different, is you have to take the oil out.
And that's where the work is.
And that's the work.
Yeah. And that's fascinating. And so have you got any like practical tips? So I think another one to add as well, if there's anyone not feeling good, childhood trauma or whatever, that they're not alone as well. I think a lot of people feel isolated and that they are going through this battle alone, but there's loads of like groups. My friend Anthony, he's got a group called the Never Throw the Towel In Project. It's to help men, and it was initially men to prevent male suicide, but now it's gone to women. So I think guys that, if they're going through this, any traumatic experiences, they're not alone. I think that's a good one as well. But yeah, are there any like tips if you're thinking, shit, I'm not good enough. This theory sounds great, but how can they, what's a practical first step to head in a good,
what to do.
Yeah.
So please bear in mind that I've been coaching for 20 years. I've never had another job. It's never been a side hustle. This is my number one passion, motivation, inspiration, and drive in life, is to give people ways to not suffer and to go from suffering to surviving to thriving. So it sounds simplistic what I'm saying, but it's taken from 20 years of simplification. In Buddhism, the goal is to make everything as simple as possible. Albert Einstein said, make everything as simple but not simpler. Meaning, give people what they need, but do not overcomplicate it. Just give them what they need. That's my understanding of that statement anyway. So these are the 4 things that anyone, if you do this, your life will change dramatically. Doesn't matter if you're living an okay life, if you're already successful or unfulfilled, or if you're suffering deeply, spiritually, and you're feeling empty and maybe lost in your life. It's always these 4 things. Number 1, change your thoughts. What we think we become. Buddha said this, Albert Einstein said this, Napoleon Hill said this, Dale Carnegie said this, Tony Robbins said this. Every teacher in the world that helps people elevate the quality of their life agrees on one thing, and it's your thoughts become your reality. Stand guard at the door of your mind.
That's good.
There's I think it was Bruce Lee that says, never ever talk badly about yourself, even if you're making a joke or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Because
great advice.
Because what do we call when you're trying to understand a word? You call it spelling, right? How do you give us the spelling of this word? Well, every word that we use is casting a spell on our life. Never talk badly about yourself. Most people suffer because they've got to a place, whether because of their trauma, their experiences of intensity, their role models or lack of role models, whatever has happened in their life, you still get to choose your language. And most people suffer because their language fucking sucks. Affirmations are not woo-woo, they're life-changing. Incantations, visualizations, painting beautiful, powerful, empowered pictures and pictures and using words to affirm those pictures in your mind. That's number 1. And the reason why it's number 1 is because you cannot tell me that you don't have the resources to use better language. And if you struggle to do it alone, one of my mentors, Andrew Priestley, says if you're doing it alone, you're doing it wrong. Usain Bolt has a coach. I've watched a documentary where his coach has to kick him out in the morning because he's too fucking lazy. He's the fastest man in the world and he needs accountability. If you think that you're too good to need a coach, you're ignorant. How can the greatest minds and athletes and performers in business need support, but you think you're too good for support? I said to someone just recently, do not be afraid to ask for help. That is your ego speaking. That is your trauma speaking. That is your conditioning speaking. The first thing you need to do, that I did last year, you know very well, is I reached out to people, including this year, because I faced my own challenges. And to have the right people around you is incredibly powerful, but I'll come to that. But the first thing you need to do is you need to give yourself permission to change. Start with, I am enough. And start to build evidence lists of what is working in your life as opposed to what isn't, by using the right language. The language that you use creates the quality of your emotions, creates the quality of your actions, creates the quality of your life. Because your decisions are a delayed response of what you have thought. That's it.
Yeah.
Whatever you have thought, eventually you're going to make a decision that's connected to that thought. Whether it's to do nothing or to do something. To do nothing and not change is still a decision. So that's number one. Number two is habits. What you do every day, you become. Fitness is not about fitness. If you think fitness is about fitness, you've seriously missed the point. I've never met someone that's gone to a forest or it's gone to a gym and has said out the other side of the forest or the other side of the gym that I feel fucking depressed. No person ever.
No one regrets not going to the gym.
No one. Maybe
Never.
if you're doing something that you really don't enjoy. But you're an idiot to think that it's fitness. It's the thing that you're doing. Do some different fitness. If you like sex, have sex. If you like football, have football. If you like whatever, tennis, badminton, find something that you enjoy. But by doing movement, you move stale energy in the body. You get the blood flowing, you get the heart pumping, you get your body vital and energized, you get the mind oxygenated. You step into your full potential by just moving. You cannot live your full potential without movement and activity. And this is actually one of the reasons where, quick side note, when I left monkhood, I knew that monk life is not for me. Because I could have gone. I got divorced, I left the UK, I was starting my life over, I wasn't a father at the time. I could have stayed and just been a monk. And all you have to do, okay, it's hard work. You have to graft, be humble, clean toilets and meditate and teach meditation. But you don't have any bills or anything like that. I could just be a monk for the rest of my life. Who knows, maybe I will in the future, right? Because I don't know what the future's going to hold. I'm always changing so much. But I knew that I couldn't do that because I think monks have it wrong. Because you're teaching from one perspective and you're only getting a certain amount of people to listen to you because of that angle that you're coming from. If monks were healthier and monks were fitter and monks were more energized, they've had more people willing to listen to them. And that I believe at my core, including because of me being a monk for that short time. I think it turned a lot of people off from me because they were like, we want to go to the gym and we want to have wealth and success. If you really want to teach people, you should embody everything that people want. And so that's for me, like, look, I have teacher monks. Still, if they ask me to meet, I'll meet them. I'll take them anywhere they want. They can stay at my house. But for me, I knew that. And I think I actually said to one of the teacher's monks after I disrobed, I said to him, fitness is too much a part of my life. Like, I can't imagine.
So the only fitness I do is working.
Yeah,
basically.
manual labor. Or I met one monk that has a kettlebell in his hut.
Okay.
But it's like, they don't look. They just all look soft. So I believe that my opinion, if you want to help as many people as possible, be the best role model that you can be. Not in one area, not in compassion. How is that having the best influence on the world if you're only good at one thing? The best way to have influence on as many people as possible, or impact, is to shine in as many areas of life as possible. To be the greatest role model in every way that you can be. And I've just known from having a crutch when I was a kid, falling into sport, and from pushing all of my clients over 20 years to make fitness a non-negotiable in their life, I've just seen too much evidence that when you're fit, you thrive. It's that simple. And look at professional athletes. When they stop being a professional athlete, they get depressed. They get suicidal. Some even commit suicide. They become alcoholics. They become cokeheads because they've stopped training every day. It's not more complicated than that. The more fitter you are, the more it's a part of your non-negotiable life, the more non-negotiable you become because you build physical, mental, and spiritual resilience and strength. But that's one single habit. I have a thing in my coaching called the 10 Commandments. Like the 10 Commandments set in stone. Imagine if everyone had their own 10 commandments for their life based on what they know works for them. For me, it's like early wake up. It's non-negotiable. Fitness, non-negotiable. Meditation, non-negotiable. Journaling, non-negotiable. Some kind of putting something out into the world every day, non-negotiable. When you live by these non-negotiables, you become non-negotiable. And then around these non-negotiable habits, I say this to people all the time, never create your habits for who you already are. Create them for the person that you want to be. If meditating 10 minutes is easy for you, set a non-negotiable agreement with yourself that I will meditate for 15 minutes. And then eventually, from idea, concept, I think if I do 15 minutes, I'll grow. Eventually, idea becomes practice, practice becomes identity. When 15 minutes becomes your identity, then you go stretch yourself to 20 minutes. 5 minutes of journaling to 20 minutes of journaling. 1 piece of content to 5 pieces of content. 1 sales call to 5 sales calls. Just that's how you change your life. 1 habit at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 decision at a time. But lastly, on habits, is our confidence is created through evidence. I didn't have confidence growing up. This is why I love to teach confidence and to bring it to people's lives. There is no confidence that everyone has. Your confidence is created by self, and your confidence is created through actions and decisions. But your confidence is also destroyed in your decisions. So if you imagine like your 10 habits for the day or your 10 goals, right? Imagine there's like square check boxes. You create these check boxes for your day. Every time you set a goal and you set a checkbox in your diary or on your phone or whatever, and you do it, the brain is triggered to believe that Paul is a person of his word. He does what he says, he walks his talk. Now imagine if you do this 100 times. That confidence is deeply instilled in you, but the opposite is also true. When you tick off your goals, what's called performance achievements in sports psychology, you build your confidence. This is why coaches get you athletes to do shit all the time. Measure it, celebrate it, measure it, celebrate it, measure it, celebrate it. And your well-being goes up, your wellness goes up, your fulfillment goes up, your happiness goes up by tiny little goals. Because it's not about the goal. It's about what are you telling your brain? I always do what I say. But the opposite is also true. When you set those goals and you don't tick them off, people think that that's okay. But eventually, your spirit...
Not achieving what you want is also okay.
Your brain sends the same signal to the body, to the spirit, that Paul is not a person of his word. He says one thing, does another. He's not a person who walks their talk. His tongue and his mouth and the tongue in his shoe go in different directions every day. They're not aligned. Now imagine you do that for 90 days. Now imagine you do that for 9 years. Confidence down, certainty down, wellness down, well-being down, happiness down. And eventually you feel like you can't change. And that's when people get really stuck. But it's because of their lack of decision making and sticking to their decisions. And this is why habits are incredible. And once again, you cannot tell me that you don't have the internal or external resources to just create powerful habits. It can be make your bed. It doesn't cost any money. It doesn't take any time. It could be put your shoes on, walk outside. Doesn't cost any money. Doesn't take any time. Start where you are. Do what you can. That's always enough. Just start. So that's number 2, thoughts and habits. Next one is environment. I don't need to go into that deep, but you are the people that you spend the most time with, and also your environment is an extraordinary influence on the quality of your life, your thoughts, your emotions. I just gave an example before. I always say to people, I've been coming to Dubai and speaking here for years, maybe 7 or 8 years, maybe longer. You can set your goals. If anyone's never been to Dubai, I encourage you to go, or I encourage you to come here. You can set your goals for life in your airport, wherever you are. New York, London, South Africa, Thailand, wherever, Germany. And I promise you, take a flight, you're at the airport, take your flight to Dubai, spend 24 hours here, write your goals again. I'm 99% sure that your goals will be different in some way. Because when you are in an environment that challenges the norm, that makes things that seemingly are impossible into the possible, when you're surrounded by success, wealth, fulfillment, opportunity, possibility, it's impossible to think alike. You think like your environment. This is why I don't have social circles. I've never had drinking buddies. I don't. Even when I was married before, my friends rarely, if I went out, were my wife's friends. I just don't value it. Because if it's not taking me towards the person I want to be, I'm not here to be liked. I wasn't put on this earth to party. Well, I might party, but it's not why I'm here. I want to be around people, around things, around experiences, immersed in experiences and people and environments and communities that allow me to grow, be better spiritually, financially, mentally, physically. I want to be encouraged, inspired, challenged, pushed, nurtured by my environment. And the environment that you're in is doing that. It's either doing all of that or it's not. And everything in your environment and everyone is either, imagine this is your fuel source for life. And this is your environment. And this is the people in your environment, including what some people really need to hear, your intimate relationship. Every single relationship and every experience in your life is either pouring into your life or you're pouring your spirit into this person and you're never getting it back, into this environment. And eventually you become sick and tired of being sick and tired. You become so exhausted, you become angry, you become resentful. And this is where you start having vices and bad behaviors and bad traits. Because what must you do? I'm not judging people. I've done a lot of these things. I've done drugs, cigarettes, partying, everything, hedonism in my 20s. You have to fill yourself up some way. And the brain knows, go to where I can get a quick result. The first place is sugar.
Yeah.
The next place is alcohol. The next place is sex and drugs. But it's the brain just wanting to feel good enough. It just wants those happy chemicals, and you have nothing left. You're empty. You're exhausted. This is why many people drink after work, because they feel empty and they want some dopamine. They want some serotonin. They want some endorphins. They want some feeling good hormone release in the body, and they're not getting it from their life. And if you're not getting it from the people in your life and your environments, you will become an angry person.
Yeah.
And it's not about the people in your life. Sometimes you think it is, but it's you have a lack of boundaries. And you've not set up boundaries. And maybe because you've not set up boundaries, people don't even know that there's a boundary there.
Yeah.
So they walk all over you and you start thinking, it's these people, they don't respect me. But it's not about that. You've not told them that you need a boundary there. And I'm very good at that, to the point that I come across to many people incredibly selfish. I know what my boundaries are. I know I need space. I'm willing to lose people in my life for it.
Yeah.
I'm just not
when
willing.
you leave a party, when it's really kicking off and you're just like, right guys, I need to sleep.
When I was a DJ, like proper hedonist, they would do 2-3 days in London. The longest I've ever done party is like 2 p.m. the next day. It's like party all night, all through the morning to midday. That's the longest. Because I just know when I'm done, I'm done. But that's maybe like 5 times in my life.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, it's like, I don't know, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. In the last 2 years, 12. This year, I don't even drink alcohol right now. It's, I'm in bed by 8 or 9.
Up at 4.
3 to somewhere between 3 and 5. I don't use an alarm clock. My passion wakes me up. That sounds so cheesy. Yeah. But I just don't use an alarm clock anymore. I live naturally. I tell myself that whatever sleep I get is what my body needs. And if I wake up early, I don't allow myself, once again, spelling words. I don't allow myself to say I'm tired. I just say my body wants to go live my life. I'm so grateful for my life. That's why I wake up so early. And it's such a massive shift. Anyway, so that's environment. And then the last one is energy. We spoke on it before. Everything is vibration. Everything is energy. Energy is everything. Albert Einstein said very famously that when you match the frequency of the reality that you want, you cannot help but get it. I encourage everyone to go on Google and download frequency chart and look at everything that is of high frequency: love, gratitude, peace, abundance, joy. And anything that is of high frequency, go do that in your life. And that is a non-negotiable for me. So I spoke to someone today that's just recently had suicidal thoughts. Weirdly, I've been called to this direction this year, and we've been having talks about it. And in the last few weeks, you encouraged me to do those videos, because I was like, I don't have anything. It's the reason why I started coaching, because of my father. But I don't have anything online, and now I have a few videos that I sent to another person 2 weeks ago. But this person this week, I said to them today, I said, write a list of all high energy activities in your life and fill your day with that, for no other reason than it makes you feel good. So those are the 4 things. Protect your thoughts and choose positive language. Number 2, build powerful habits that are non-negotiable. Not when you feel like it, not when the sun's out, not when it's comfortable. They're non-negotiable. Set agreements with yourself. When you wake up at 5 a.m., it's not about the time. It's an agreement with yourself. Before you even start your day, before you even start working, you are saying, I am a fucking person of my word. And And that goes into every single area of your day. Number 3 is environment.
Yeah.
Get around the right people, get around the right energy, create a powerful environment, clean your bloody car, make your bed, clean your house. And whatever, it doesn't mean that it needs to be OCD like me, I'm super OCD.
You're next level.
It's, are you inspired and do you act from inspiration when you're in your environment? Or do you act from lack and scarcity and fear and uncertainty? Your environment has the power to do that.
Yeah.
I said in your new apartment, which is the nicest view I've ever seen from an apartment in Dubai. I said, what is the first thing I said you should do every day?
Journal at 5 a.m. What journal whenever you get overlooking the view.
Overlooking the view every day.
Yeah.
Create the internal environment by leveraging your outer environment.
Yeah.